The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome to the show, all Cherries fans, all Everton fans, and of course the rest of the Premier League. Now we've got a very, very special preview show and interview for you today. Now, before we get into the interview, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Now, to find out a little bit more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, my special guest is a man that played for Everton. In fact, Everton's last trophy was the 1995 FA Cup final. As well as playing for the Toffees, he played for a number of teams such as Southampton, Swindon Town, Bari in Italy, and Tranmere Rovers, amongst many others as well that we'll touch upon. It is a pleasure to welcome onto the show, and he is actually from Bournemouth, did you know? Paul Rideout. Welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Excellent stuff. And thank you so much for joining us. Now, of course, we will come to your time with the Toffees and, of course, a very, very special moment as well in a little while. But what a lot of people won't be aware is that you actually grew up in Bournemouth. What was your time like down here?
I loved it. Obviously, Bournemouth is such a pretty place. I actually lived in a place called Leamington.
Yeah.
It's a place that is always special to me. You know, like Southampton, Bournemouth is very much the same. Used to go down to the sea. In actual fact, I nearly signed for Bournemouth when I was a schoolboy. Harry Redknapp was there at the time, and he'd see me in a couple of games and try to get me to sign on schoolboy forms. And I didn't, like I didn't with Southampton until later on, solely because I wanted to play during the weekend. There was 3 or 4 different teams I used to play for, and I'd only be able to play for one team. So I decided that, it wasn't the right time, and I just wanted to continue playing just local soccer.
Did you go down to Dean Court as a kid, and what were your earliest memories of the beautiful game?
I went down to Dean Court before I ever went down to Southampton. I love the atmosphere in there. It's not the huge stadium, but they're really, really like staunch, true fans. Many like Everton. It kind of reminds you of that because everyone pretty much knows everyone. Like where I lived in Leamington, it kind of that atmosphere. And recently watching Bournemouth last year towards the end, and they're playing really well, and looking at the start that they've just had, it just reminds me of a local club and a friendly club, and the fans are are very much appreciated by the players.
And it's a club that's come a long way, hasn't it, Paul? Because I guess when you was looking or potentially could have signed under Harry, it was our first time, I'm guessing, in the second tier of English football. But of course, you went to Swindon Town. Firstly, why Swindon, and what was your time like at the county ground?
That was because of my parents. My mother came from Swindon, and I'd trained down there a couple of times. They allowed me to go in there. I was a little bit too young, but they still allowed me to go in there, and they just treated me so well, And like I say, it goes back to family clubs. But Southampton wasn't really like that at the time when it came to schoolboys, because they were you come in, and then another kid comes in, and they don't even know your name. Whereas, clubs like Bournemouth, clubs like Swindon, they were very friendly, and I felt at home there. So that was the reason why I ended up signing for those.
Of course, when I first found out that you was going to come on this show as well, I did a little bit of research, and I saw an absolutely screamer that you scored for England under 15s, and it was part of a hat trick as well. What made you go for goal from that range?
Yeah, I said it a few times. It's like there was nothing else going on, and I just thought, why not just have a go, and you see it so often now, with long range shots, but Scottish goalkeeper and all that, thought I might have a chance, but yeah, it was just one of those where you just connect perfectly, and fortunately for me, it just flew in the top corner.
Is it one of your more memorable goals? One of your first goals, of course.
It is. Obviously because it was the hat trick and it was for your country,
Yeah.
and it was at Wembley. So, I actually, that's one of my lucky places. I played there 5 times and scored four different occasions. So it's a pretty good place, but it's hard to get there.
Yeah, most definitely. And we will talk about one of those in a moment. Everton fans, I know that you know what we're going to be talking about in a moment. But of course, you did leave Swindon in the end, and you did have the option, I believe, of going to either Liverpool or Aston Villa, who were both, of course, in the top flight. Why did you choose Villa, and how did you find the step up?
Why I chose Villa, and I've said it many times, is Liverpool didn't give me any time. All I wanted to do was meet a player. Ironically, later on in life, Kenny Dalglish became my neighbour, and he was the coolest, nicest guy that you'd ever want to meet. He introduced himself to me, and I couldn't believe that. And if I'd have met him there and then because he was playing, and Ian Rush, which I've met many times, if I'd have been able to meet one or two of them, I would have just signed. I wouldn't have looked at the contract. It was one of those where back in the day you were just in awe of players. I don't think you see that so much now, but yeah, I spent 4.5 hours getting up to Liverpool, in there for 2 hours, talked money, talked, a few bits and pieces. Went to Villa. They spent the whole day with me. Went round, saw the youth and how the youth program's working, and then the reserves, and then I met Gordon Cowns, who actually ended up going to Italy with. I met him, and it was an honour. Gordon was one of the top players at the time, and he was nice enough to give me 20 minutes to talk and tell me why I should come, and you could see it was a friendly club. And I actually signed for less money, so it's not all about it, or it wasn't at the time, about that. It was about feeling at home. So again, I was still a young kid, and I got into Swindon's team as a 16-year-old, just turned 16, and 2 years of there. To be honest, Swindon were a fabulous club as far as pushing me through at the right time. I had a coach, John Trollope, that was more like a dad, and he was the one that pushed me on and knocked me back sometimes. And they're all linked, but I've always been a family person. It was my dad that really made a decision to say, "Hey, you're going to Villa," because it's a similar setup to Swindon in the fact that you're going to feel at home.
And you did well at Villa, didn't you, as well?
I did. I had a kind of knockback where when I first signed, I thought, "Yeah, I'll be in the first team in 4 or 5 months," and 6 months later, I'm still like on the bench, not getting on, and it's a learning period, where it's such a step up and such a different type of football, in the fact that it's touch and it's movement and it's angles, whereas lower levels it's more physical. There's good technical players, don't get me wrong, but it's a different type of football, and it took time. It did, but I had some really good players to work off and watch and learn from. Peter With, and the likes. They just won the Champions League, the equivalent now, and so it was. They were in a top club. So it was a learning period. But once I got in there and had a few games. The first 4 games I didn't score, and then once I started scoring, I did well. And second season I was top scorer for the club. Then I made the biggest mistake of my career is moving to Italy so young. You think you've arrived, and I should have learnt that when I came from Swindon to Villa, and I didn't. And I kind of went backwards for a year or so because the Italian league then was the big league. Maradona was there, and Maldini, and all the big names that you could think of were playing in Italy. I met Graham Souness there. We played Sampdoria in that, and he was so cool as well. And Trevor Francis, yeah, it was just a good experience, but not in the way of soccer, because it's so different. And, the different speed of the game, the way that it's more technical and tactical. Whereas in Europe, in England, should I say, it's a much faster, full-on game, so.
You did, when you was at Bari, make just one shy of 100 appearances, and also you scored 23 times. But when you had that opportunity to move to Southampton, did you just take it with both hands?
I did, in the fact that both my wife and I were homesick. 3 years there. I did have an offer from a couple of other clubs that were in Syria at the time, but I had enough of Italy, to be honest, and not because the people they were lovely, but it was just I was homesick, and so was the wife, and so Southampton being a home club, I thought, well, I'm going back, and I know everywhere around that place, and it just seemed like the right move. And plus, when I'm looking at the team that Southampton had at the time, they were a good attacking team. Not so much defence, but attacking wise, we'd outscore a lot of teams, and it was a fun team to play.
You did have 2 short stints as well at Notts County under Neil Warnock, and then Rangers. Firstly, what was Neil like to work under?
Yeah, that was a true life experience. When I said about everything, that guy, yeah, he's he's just put it this way. He's strange. He's strange. There's a few stories there that I can't say, but not good. Not good. The 7 months. Notts County fans were excellent. Good atmosphere there, but no, I didn't enjoy myself with him because of certain circumstances, and I could never say, but they were totally wrong in what he did, not just for me, but many things. So that experience I just put behind me, and just didn't enjoy that. It wasn't fun.
And you went north of the border to Rangers. What was that time like up there?
Fabulous. They're crazy mental fans with an unbelievable atmosphere. When you walk in every home game, away game, and you've got more fans in the away game than the home fans, and then every time that we have a home game, you can't get a ticket. They're just crazy for it, and they're fabulous. The whole atmosphere of that club was brilliant. The setup, the players I play with, Haitley and McCoist, and many more. Davy Robertson. It was tremendous setup and a great club.
And it was a successful period as well, wasn't it, for Rangers?
It was, I remember actually I was sub in the Scottish Cup final, and I got up off the bench, and it was 0-0 at the time, and it was about 20 minutes to go, and I went behind the Rangers goal, and I started trying to get the crowd going, and they just responded. It was just, it was one of the best moments, funny enough. And then we scored, and they went absolutely mental. And it was a good day. We won the league, and then, but trying to get past Mark Haitley and McCoist at the time was always going to be difficult. But going from Notts County, where I wasn't particularly happy, and then going to Rangers, and the thing was, Walter Smith came in and said Everton had come in for you. We're happy to keep you because we love you here. And he said, "There's no pressure. If you want to stay, you stay." And that was the way he was with everyone. They loved him, Walter Smith. And I decided, maybe I need to play. It wasn't enough, and so Everton is a huge club, as you know, fan base and stuff. Recent years they've struggled financially, and they've had several different coaches, and it's been difficult. But no, I'd never had one issue at Everton other than the first 2 weeks when I'm sat in the stand. I hadn't played a game, and we're playing in a League Cup, and they're 2-0 up, and then they're playing a lower level team, and the next minute we see we're 3-2 down at home, and they turn around and I won't say what they said, and you can F off somewhere else, and they're blaming everyone that's around, and they're that passionate. It just, they get so emotional, and but bit by bit with Everton, I loved it. I loved the fans, loved the club. Being a big club, but people look at it, well, they're not a big club because they're always fighting for relegation, but they are. And the fans, the amount of fans they have week in, week out. No, not many clubs get that in the respect of, you're fighting for relegation. And in my time there, I had a few fights for that in relegation, and it's not nice. It's not, the pressure that you're under, and I was watching the players last year, and I was so pleased that they managed to stay up. But I understood what they felt, and players want to do well. Everyone wants to do well. No one wants to fail, and I'm looking at Bournemouth. I never want Bournemouth to go down. I never want Southampton to go down, because they're where I come from, and they're smaller clubs as far as fan base, but they play the right stuff. They play good stuff, and you want good soccer teams to stay up. You know, I'm not a huge Sheffield United fan. I wasn't bothered that they went down, but when you've got good teams that play the way it should be played, you don't want them to go out of the Premiership.
And the man that signed you did play good football, Howard Kendall. Of course, sadly passed away some years ago. And your first game for the Toffees, I found out, was a 1-1 draw against Sheffield Wednesday. When you first arrived, Paul, what was that squad like? Because there were some big names in that squad.
Yeah, there was, but they were ready to get out the door. You know, it was kind of Graham Sharp, for instance, was just leaving, and there were a few others that were kind of in the club, but you know they weren't happy, and so they were kind of causing a few problems here and there. You know, with the atmosphere, it wasn't truly great to walk into. There was one dressing room and another dressing room, put it that way, and
Yeah.
that's just the cycle of soccer. Sometimes the older guys are going out, and I've obviously been in that, and newer kids coming in. So Southampton with Shearer, is a young kid, and I'm looking at myself, and I've had a decent career, but I'm looking at Shearer, and he's going to be a superstar. The kid is so strong, fast, and confident. And a good kid and a nice kid at the time, very respectful. And so, it's kind of is what it is.
Of course, Howard did do well, and of course he won the title with Everton twice in a row before you arrived there. How did he cope, considering there was two dressing rooms and there was a bit of friction?
Because he's a big personality. He's a good player. As a man manager, very good. As a tactical coach, not so much. But just him talking and knowing what a great player he was and what he'd done for the club, you can't dispute that. And sometimes it's a bit like, it reminds me a little bit of Harry Redknapp and his personality. That everyone loves him, and you can't not like him. And he's just always cheerful, and he loves his players and he cares for his players, and that really is where you look for the most successful coaches. I'm looking around in the Premiership now, and Klopp had a great relationship with his players. And you look at Man City, he cares for his players. There are some, because they got so many good players. It becomes a more difficult job. Weirdly enough, the more you have, the more you got to keep happy, and it's that coaching and youth level and stuff. It's the same thing. You're trying to keep kids happy. You have players that want to play, want to be on there, but if someone is consistent week in, week out, you got to try and keep them on the field. But youth soccer is a little bit different, where you got to give everyone some decent playing time. Whereas, but basically, when I was at Southampton, I wasn't happy because I wasn't getting enough playing time, and Chris Nichol was trying to keep everyone happy. And he was a super nice guy. He really was. And a lot of players liked him. So it's just difficult, and Kendall he wasn't just a good people person. He was a good, big character, He'd walk in a room and you get everyone going. So there's not many that can do that.
He was replaced, though, by Mike Walker, former Norwich City manager, who spent a short stint in charge of the club. But the start of the 94-95 season, which we'll probably talk quite a bit about, wasn't great, and you were in the bottom four for a long period of time. What went wrong under Walker?
Him walking through the door.
Okay.
he there was an occasion, and this is like I think pre-season or maybe a game or two into the season, but I think it's pre-season. And at Everton, there was the building. You could go up on the roof and you could
Yeah.
look down. And he was sat in some trunks, like sunbathing, watching us do a pre-match game. Like we're playing against the reserves, and we all look up, and he's sat there in trunks, like watching our game. And I'm thinking, like, who is this guy? But I never think, and this is just my personal opinion. It's
Yeah.
not right or wrong, but goalkeepers don't make coaches, top coaches. They don't. They're good at what they do as far as goalkeepers because it's specialized, and that's where you leave the goalkeeping coach to his business with the goalkeeper because no, for me, I'm not an expert with them. The only thing I see is when I'm coaching the goalkeepers is that I'm a striker and I'm looking at his angles. But for him, in the way that his character was, he came from Norwich, and in some respects he did well there. But he came to Everton, and the expectations at Everton with the fans in that, and it's totally different. I think he just came there and thought it would happen, and there was no respect from a lot of players. And he didn't last long, and it showed in his results, and everything is in results. To be fair, first and foremost, you need every player to be on your side, and if you're coaching and your players know if the sessions are good, they know, and they weren't, and we weren't fit enough, we weren't sharp enough, and then we had a change, and that was the difference.
And of course, Joe Royle come in, and in the first three games, you scored in each of those, and they were all three wins. The first one being a 2-0 win against Liverpool.
No,
Considering,
that was the third one. The first one was against Leeds.
was it
Yeah.
so against Leeds first? Yeah, after what Mike Walker had done, and of course the club being bottom of the league, what did Joe say initially to the side when he come in?
Well, first off, you look at Joe Royle, and he's a legend at Everton.
Yeah.
So he's got the fans on his side already. He's got the respect of the players already because of what he's done. He's a forward anyway, and he didn't do a whole amount, but he just didn't put pressure on us, and he said, go out there and enjoy it, boys. Just go out there and play, and to be fair, the first three games, a lot of things went right for us, but we weren't conceding goals. And that was his project, was to keep clean sheets. And like they threw out the dogs of war stuff, and it was everyone worked for each other. We had a lot of workmen like players that just liked each other, and we worked. Barry Horn was at Southampton with me. Him and Joe Parkinson worked their socks off, and it just became normal that we'd all work. And there wasn't any superstars in the team. And we were good. We were good. We were hard to play against. It wasn't ugly soccer either. We played some decent stuff, but we just didn't. We didn't give anyone a breather. And he got us fit. So that was a good timing, so to speak.
And one of your partners up front was one big Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah.
How did you find playing with him?
Apart from being an absolutely great soccer player, brilliant touch with the size he is, and great guy. He loved playing with people that would go out there and die for the team.
Yeah.
And he would look after you. I wouldn't mess with it. I got on so well with him, but he was like that in the whole club. He walked through the dressing room and he'd walk up to the chefs when we had food and stuff. They all loved him. I don't know anyone that didn't like him. But get him on the field, he's a lunatic.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely off his head. But he had ability. He had really good. He could have gone much further than he did. There was certain temperaments that really made him, but knocked him back as well. That sometimes he couldn't control. He was absolutely super fun to play with.
I do remember watching a couple of years back, and of course, the perception and Duncan Ferguson's a player that's always stuck with me because of that hard man. He was physical presence on the pitch. He was a tough player to play against. But a couple of years back, I watched something he was in, and I just thought he's just such a nice, down to earth bloke, and that's what he was like throughout until he got onto the field.
Yeah, either got on the field or got in a pub. Yeah, yeah, either one. He just switched on when he got on the field. Had all his tools, and if you competed fairly, he would compete fairly. But it wasn't when things were going wrong he'd lose his rag. It was where he'd lose his rag with a couple of players on his own team because he saw they weren't working hard enough and they weren't doing it. They were skillful, clever players. But when they weren't working hard enough, that's not good enough for him, and he would let you know. And he was truly, making a coach and being a coach. You could see that because you want to listen to it, and it wasn't because of being frightened or scared or whatever. But I've never seen anyone. I remember Keane, and he was a tough guy. He was one of those Jimmy Case and all that.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Case and Duncan Ferguson very, very similar in the fact that absolute respect for them, but if you do anything wrong, they're in your face, and that's what he was like, and he was brilliant, and he's very, very well liked, like I said, from the players.
Considering his love for the club as well, just sticking with Duncan Ferguson for a moment, do you feel that, of course, he's been to Forest Green Rovers, he's now managing back in Scotland. If he was given the Everton job full time, I always think that he did very, very well when he was in temporary charge of Everton.
Mm.
I honestly think he would have done a very good job as Everton manager full time.
Yeah, I kind of, coaching myself, youth soccer. What I look at that, and it's kind of like Wayne Rooney moving around and what he's done. I don't think Wayne Rooney, for instance, has learnt his trade. I look at a few of the Man United players now, Middlesbrough and Ipswich. Those guys learnt their trade. They came through the youth program. They learned what it's about. It's so much work you don't understand as a player, and once you turn into a coach, doing your badges and all that sort of thing, and and then you get players and you're teaching players, and everyone's different, and the way that you have to teach that player against that player, it's so different, and I think again, Duncan was put in the deep end, and he did well because initially, a lot of people were frightened of him or just wanting to do well for him because he makes you want to do that. But it wears off, There's not many Harry Redknapps, for instance. He's a coach that is done extremely well with all the teams that he's gone to, and very, very much the light and the fact that he can be really nasty, but most of the time he's really cool. But you don't want to get on his nasty side. But it's years of experience. It's not come in 2 years and get a big job. It's the wrong thing. And I think that Rooney, has struggled with that. Going to Birmingham was a strange one, and with Duncan, um, the lower leagues, like I said, is different type of football, different atmosphere, and for me, I don't have that experience, so I don't know, but I think that's part of it. And when you're playing or having good players around you, they can do this, they can do that. So when you do your sessions, they're intelligent enough to be able to do that. Whereas in the lower leagues, and I played with players that
Yeah.
where they give you everything, as in Bournemouth, back in the day, they had the soccer they play now is like phenomenal. That and for a small club or smaller club, should I say, they play the right way. They play a really good brand. I watched them towards the end of last season. I watched them about 2 or 3 times, and their football was brilliant. And with Duncan, it's a bit more long ball. I'm assuming Everton played a little bit like that to a certain extent. So it's different factors that come in. It's not always a straightforward answer.
Things, of course, that season, 94-95, only got better, especially in the FA Cup. What can you remember, Paul, of the run to the final? You only conceded one goal in the run, which was against Spurs in the semi-final.
Yeah, we had a lot of luck. Bristol City battered us at their place. That was our toughest game out of all of them.
Yeah.
And it was sometimes you have a little bit of luck, and you're going to get somewhere. I've had a couple of runs where I've got to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and you feel like you're going to get there. And on this particular run, once we got past Bristol City, which is the most important game really when we look back at it, there was no fear. We were fighting relegation, and once we got clear of that, we were just looking forward to just another game, because that's what we felt it was like. It was a bonus, and it was the fact that you're playing Man United, who just lost the league narrowly to I don't know who it was at the time. I think it was Liverpool. It might have been, but it was well, just go out there and play. No fear at all, just enjoyment. And we walked out there, and everyone was so relaxed, and like I always remember about it. It's like almost where I don't care. I'm here at Wembley, and
Yeah.
but you once you get there, you do care, and then once you see all those fans out there, killed themselves to get there and spend all that money on those tickets, and and then you win the game, and it's only kind of 10 years after you realize how much that meant to them. That makes it special, and they still talk about it now, just in the fact that they haven't won anything since then.
Of course, the week prior to that Wembley game, so you've survived relegation. I think the FA Cup back then as well was more of a spectacle, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was such
every,
a big occasion.
outside of the league, it was everything, and it
Yeah.
was for me as a kid. And I shouldn't say it on the broadcast for Bournemouth, but I went to watch when Southampton won the FA Cup final. I was there, and that's where it really got to me as a kid, how big it was, and when they put the trophy up and all that. And it was huge. It was massive. It was like winning the Champions League. But there's so many more trophies now, and so many more games
Mhm.
that it's kind of lessened in the fact. But people still look at the FA Cup, but nothing like back in the day when I was playing. The importance of it is kind of dissolved so much, and it's sad really, because it's a great little story maker, so to speak, for all the clubs. That getting to the fifth round when you're a lower league, and I'd done that, and it was like magic. Then you come up against a top club, and it's just one of those games where it's a break from the league. You go out there and you've got nothing to lose, but everything to win. And it's a terrific cup, but not so much now.
It's such a shame, really, because of course they've got rid of replays. Also, we got
Mm.
beat by Leicester in last year's FA Cup. Really, really disappointing game. But it's the first. We was at home, and of course we drew the match after 90 minutes. And I thought, oh, we're going up to Leicester. Got the replay. And then they started extra time. And it was like, because they've made so many alterations to try and accommodate the big six, it
Yeah,
has just devalued the trophy, hasn't it?
it has, but I don't think it's just the big six. I think it's the fact of they play so many national team games now, and there's too many games, and then they want the World Cup every 2 years now. It's just the sad thing is the people behind it who aren't playing, and the financial side of it, the owners that are paying so much money out. They're wanting more and more, and it's huge for the smaller clubs. I don't. I think, to be honest, the League Cup was never even that big when I was
Yeah.
playing. It wasn't. It wasn't that important, but FA Cup was, and they've devalued it way too much now. And like you said, they're changing the rules of it. PK shootouts and whatever. So it does bring it down somewhat, but my point for all of this is that when you're the other half of the Premiership, solely really because of finance, and depth of squad. Bournemouth's got a really really good team.
Yeah.
If they get 4 or 5 injuries to their top players, there's no replacements, and it is difficult at that level to be able to maintain, the way that they're playing. You want kids to come in, and Bournemouth and Southampton and Portsmouth have all been clubs that have given kids a chance, and that's a special thing. But everything's about results and the importance of staying in the Premiership because of finance. Again, that bumper money they get to survive. They need it, and to a certain point, too many games, too many injuries that like you're looking forward to it as a fan, but the coach has got to look at, well, do I need to rest him because we got this game and that's more important, those 3 points, than
Yeah.
this particular game. So they've got to look at everything, and it's hard, and fans don't always understand, but fans are paying super big money to come to games now. It's ridiculous how much they have to pay. I sometimes look at it, and I'm looking at, they bought a ticket, they bought some food, they're traveling there, they're taking time off, they're taking their Saturday off, and they have to go back and work the next day or so. So it's like a tremendous commitment that these people give. And like I'm working class. My dad he was a brickie, and I always appreciate, the commitment and how much time and effort and money it is to go and watch these games. And the only thing that there is no kind of comeback on for a soccer player is working hard.
Yeah.
And it still happens now. And there's a difference between working hard and not being sharp. When you see a top player and he didn't have it today, but he still tried to do his work. Like Harry Kane would always do that. He'd always work his socks off, but he sometimes didn't always have it. You can never blame someone like that. But there are superstars out there, and some of them are foreign because it's different in Italy and it's different in Spain, different type of game. And I can see fans why they moan. And one players, have a go back. They should look at themselves, and they know that whether they put their work in that particular game, and there's no excuse for it. Absolutely no excuse when fans are paying that much money.
Of course, it was the era, and so you scored the goal and won the game. What was the celebrations like? Because of course Manchester United, there was a lot made about them because they just lost the title to Blackburn Rovers that season, and then this was their big thing, wasn't it? This was the game that they wanted to win to stop themselves going the whole season empty-handed.
Yeah, and they've been right up there in the league. And if you look at their squad and then you look at our squad, cost wise, superstars all over the place. The difference is that it was the first half. They didn't turn up the first half. Second half, they killed us. And our defense was unreal. Neville Southall was like fantastic. And our defense was brilliant. And again, as a team, we fought and we got lucky. We had a little bit of well, not a little bit, loads of luck to have won that game. But for the first 45 minutes, we talked about it at half time. It's like, hey, we can get one more goal, they're done, because they look like they're going to throw the towel in, and they came out and they just went at us. But you need that little bit of luck, even with the goal. It hits the crossbar, bounces out, and I get an opportunity to get the rebound. So, we did have a lot of luck on the day, but that luck, was earned to a certain extent in the fact that the work that we put in the game, and really, truly, man to man, player to player, we had no right to win it. But in a two-horse race, you've always got a chance. So it was a great day.
Celebrations must have been pretty special afterwards, weren't they?
Yeah, especially Duncan Ferguson's kilt and a bit of flashing here and there, and it's big Dunk. It was just a good night, but it was a better day the next day when we got on the open air bus and drove home. When we went on the initial bus to get back to Liverpool, it was every car was beeping and all that sort of thing, and then you get on that open air bus and it's so much fun. Then you realise how much it means to everyone. You have Liverpool fans, you had Everton fans out there, so it's the biggest thing for them. They hadn't won for a long time, and but to have Liverpool fans, showing their appreciation as well, which was pretty special. There's a lot of families that are mixed anyway, so
yeah,
it's it was a great day, great weekend. One to remember. Long time ago now, though.
Of course, you had a great relationship with Joe Royle, but what was it like when he left the club?
I left to go to China because it was kind of, I was at the end of my career, and I'm looking at the fact that can't do this anymore at this level. And the last kind act he did for me, he said, he was always appreciative and always would talk to you, and and this is what I've done in my coaching career, is that you do training and they go, you do a decent pass and a good touch and you're working hard. You hear his voice saying that to you, and he names you and he names you, but he doesn't. It's not just me. It was all the players, and it makes you feel $1 million. Small things like that, it's like when someone does something really cool, and I saw that. Yeah, that was classy, but he was such a lovely guy to talk to, a gentleman, and a top player, and there aren't many of him, left. I think there's a lot of younger coaches now that are technical and tactical, and it's video, lots and lots of video. As a player myself, I never really watched video. I watched TV, and I watched the games that were on, and I watched not the game but the player. And trying to get your kids to do that now, they're so active, they have so many things. It is a different world. But talking about Joe, he was one that I would never forget. Yeah, gentleman.
when you left Everton to go to China, I have read, and I don't know how true this is, but I've read this story about a motorbike.
Yep,
Is it true?
yep, yep.
It is.
Weirdest thing, yep. Like we just got this random guy that decided, like, said he would take me there, got me on a bike. The traffic was crazy, so we just got in and out of the traffic. Just about made my flight. That's absolutely mental. Just finished the game, and it's going outside, and the people ask for an autograph, and I can't. Put it on, get on the bike, bang, we're gone. And he was, I was a little bit scared for my life there though, because he was mental. Yeah, that was interesting.
And of course, you played in multiple other countries as well before returning back to Merseyside with Tranmere Rovers and John Aldridge, where you did start get your first taste of coaching.
Yeah, to a certain extent. You know, that was another thing with John Aldridge. He wasn't a great coach. He wasn't technically and tactically. You know, he didn't have a lot of ideas, but as far as pointers and what, you know, getting people to go and get up and push on, he was good. He was good to me, obviously, because I'm in his era, you know, and you know, as a senior player. But if you didn't do certain things he wants, he was a monster. Like, not in a bad way, but like you couldn't get away with anything if you weren't working. He would kill you. You know, he played for Liverpool, did brilliantly at Liverpool, and was an icon there. But he reminds me, you know, of Ian Rush. He was a total goal scorer. Ian Rush was a better soccer player, maybe, but you know, they were on the same kind of level when it came to scoring goals, but they weren't a Kenny Dalglish. And you know, he wanted someone to come in, and I actually played midfield for Tranmere, and I started as forward, but finished after about 5 or 6 games, played midfield, as I did for Glasgow Rangers. I played centre back in midfield some of the games, but you know, that's was, you know, coming in there and just talking to younger players. We had a lot of young players, good young players. Sumas was one that went on to do well, but it was a good young team, and a great club. You know, you got no, everyone forgets about Tranmere when you got Liverpool and Everton, but they're a lovely little club that the fans absolutely, you know, live for them. And yeah, it was different, but it was going back to my Swindon days. That's all it reminded me of. Is that type of soccer again. You know, I had a fabulous moment in the FA Cup. You know, when I actually this is the saddest win I ever had. But when I got away from the stadium, it was, you look at it, and I was so disappointed when we went to Everton in that FA Cup run that we had.
Yeah.
We beat Everton 3-0, and I got a really good feedback from the fans when I was coming off, and the biggest thing I never did, and I still like hate myself for doing it, is I clapped. The Everton fans gave me an unbelievable reception, but I never clapped because I forgot about it, and I was just in the emotion of it. And as the Tranmere fans, I didn't clap them, and I should have gone over there. And it's like they must have been pissed with me. But anyway, we went there and we smacked them, and it was so easy. They were so lazy, and that's what I said in the paper the next day. It wasn't the fact that we played so well; it's the fact that they were so lazy and they were so poor, and they didn't care. You know, and you know, obviously the fans booed them, and that's in any of these clubs. The expectation to work, it's a give me. So that was interesting, and then obviously we end up go the other side. So we play all of Merseyside. We go to Liverpool. You know, we play them, and they absolutely kicked our ass. So it was yeah, different.
Of course, that leads us quite nicely on to Everton of today. And of course, there's a lot of problems. It's a club that's having a real tough time. Farhad Moshiri is trying to sell the club. There's
Yeah.
been points deductions. We'll touch on that in a moment. And a fair few seasons, as you've already said, Paul, battling the drop. What do you make of what Sean Dyche has done at Goodison Park amidst this uncertainty? Is he a manager that you feel that has got it tactically spot on, has got, a good knowledge of the game, or do you feel that he's somebody who is just kind of lifting that squad up to try and drive them on to safety, but won't get them any further than that?
I thought that the first season in
Hmm.
the way that they played, and I didn't see anything. Like we stayed up, and I'm thinking, oh God, another season of this.
Yeah,
He did what he had to do at Burnley and did it brilliantly. And
yeah,
you know, you understand what a fabulous job he did for so many years for them. When you look at, they killed the championship, came out Premier, straight back down again, and got killed every game. And that didn't happen with him. But the second year, like last season, he started getting into play, did brilliantly, but they sold some of their best players, and he can't control that, and that's not on him. His fight is he's exactly who they need right now. It is as
yeah,
much as they had the worst start ever. 7 - 7, no points, lost 2 games. Tottenham there's no disgrace in that. Brighton at home, to a certain extent, there is, but they're a good team. Um, but he's honest, he's hardworking, but it's not this thing where he just kicks it long and whatever. He plays soccer.
yeah.
I've watched some of the games, and he's good. He's good at what he does. He's passionate. I wouldn't pick anyone else. I wouldn't. I like him. Maybe the fans don't, but I think, as a kind of trying to think as a coaching side, what more can he do? Some of it's to do with luck. Some of it is what it is. But some of it is, it's the players. When they see one or two players being sold, they're kind of like it's a knockback for them. Are we going to push on, or are we going to just survive? And that what losing a couple of players that they did doesn't help. And then going to you look at Tottenham, they just brought a few really good players, got the money
Yeah.
and he's a really good coach. I like him. I like the coach because he plays. He's got no fear, and he goes out there and plays a good brand of soccer. So it's there's no blame for me on Deutsch, and I like him and I rate him, and I think he's done a terrific job over the years. And too many people got the wrong idea of how he plays, because he plays some decent stuff.
Let's talk about points deductions, because this is something that really, and something that I actually spoke out on behalf of Everton fans as well. As somebody who's neutral, I spoke out and I said it's wrong. You've got Manchester City getting
Mm,
away with all their charges. You've got
mm,
Chelsea getting away with theirs. And then
mm.
you've got Forest and Everton.
Yeah,
Now, don't get me wrong, I think there's been bad mismanagement of Everton Football Club for a
right.
period of time, but that's not the fans' fault, that's not the team's fault, and that's not the manager's fault. And the Premier League, with these PSR regulations, because there's rumours again that there might be another points deduction coming this year, I just think it is damn right wrong, from Richard Masters to keep doing this to particular clubs and letting the top six get away scot free.
Yeah, they're a disgrace. They are. They're an absolute disgrace. Out. Well, I keep looking at players coming into Chelsea, players coming into Man City, the salaries that they're on, how they maintain the balance, as far as money is concerned, and how they hide it, and what they say is legit and what isn't, is beyond me. And I think that Everton, in the last couple of years have done a lot to
Mhm.
put right what they did. I think the spending that they did was silly, and they had the point deduction, and then they added another one, That's the thing, and then like you say, Man City have broken. Everyone knows they've broken rules. It's a laughing point. It's I'm looking at Arsenal, and they continue to spend, and it's not just the transfer fees; it's the salaries. So that goes onto it. And I don't, to be honest, know all the details of their rules, but that why are you knocking all the smaller clubs? As far as not that's wrong. Not the small. I mean, like the clubs that are struggling at the moment, playing wise. They're big clubs, but it seems like Man City are untouchable because they have lawyers out the wazir and they know people, and it just comes across like that they know someone that they can just keep it going. And and you look at Liverpool. I think it's balanced. I don't think they're outspending themselves. They sell, and they're not doing the same as Man City and Chelsea. Though, everyone knows how much they spent, and
Yeah.
the players that are going out, they're almost giving them away, and so that is the big one. Is as much as Man City, and they're getting away with it, and Forest. I think there's something there, but but not anymore. They've learnt their lesson, and I think Everton have learnt their lesson. I don't think they're breaking any rules, but it's they don't have the power that the bigger top 5 or 6 do, and there's something going on that none of us know. It's way above our heads, but they're getting a break here and there. But I do think that Man City are going to get smacked. I think they're going to get several deals coming back down on them, points deduction, fines, and so on. Fines aren't a problem to them, but the point deductions will. But I think they're going to get it. I really do.
Personally, I think, it's if you do what you've done to Everton and Forest, you have to do the same to Man City and Chelsea. That is my honest opinion. And there's talk about Leicester, Aston Villa, of course, Everton again. There was even some murmurings about ourselves, and it's just unfair. It's just unfair because do you feel, Paul, that if Farhad Mashiri, say for example, he decided, right, okay, I'm happy to keep the club. I want to invest lots of money into the football club to drive this club into the top six, the new stadiums being built. Do you feel that he should be able to do that, or do you feel that there's some regulations that need to be put in place?
No, I think that he should be able to invest. He
Yeah.
should. Again, I don't know the full details of a lot of this stuff. I know Bournemouth went through it, where they almost went bankrupt, and
Yeah.
they've done fabulous to come back and do what they've done. That's a bigger story than anything, to be honest. But as far as that's concerned, I think they should, because you're looking at the cities, you're looking at the Chelseas, even Tottenham. They brand new stadium,
Yeah.
and that's hundreds and hundreds of millions, and they're still spending on players. And so I don't know the balance there. But I don't know. I really don't know how it works. So it's hard to comment and be, but it is frustrating to watch some of the other clubs get done the way that they're consistently getting done, and then the bigger clubs are always getting untouched. It's got to change, and fans aren't stupid. They absolutely know that there's overspending there and there's rules being broken. But how they're hiding it and what they're doing, no one knows. So money talks, as they say.
Of course, Jared Branthwaite broke through a couple of years back, and of course, Roman Dixon also made his debut against Spurs last week. Everton have always seemed to be a club that's utilised their academy well, but do you feel that moving forwards, Paul, that there's going to be more of an impetus on that, considering the financial restraints?
Yeah, there is. There's going to have to be. And it's great to have young players coming through, but they take, it takes, just I'm just talking about myself. Going from Swindon to Villa, it takes time. you know, and it's a season or two, and no one has that time, you know, and that player has to come in and do a job straight away. We can't ease him in and play him a few games here and there. And when you're working on a youth team, if you have three or four, you know, that's 40% of your team. It's like a huge kind of pressure on them, and they do well for a couple of games, but when it comes to, you know, 5 and 6, 7 games coming quick and fast, can't do it. It's another speed, another world. You know, playing youth soccer and playing reserve team football. You know, it's totally different to stepping in there and playing against a Premiership team. And again, you know, when you've been moved up promotion wise, Luton knew that, Sheffield United knew that, and they're both doing okay in the Championship, and they can survive and do well. But when you get to that next level, it's another world. You know, and again, if you don't have the money, you don't have the depth in your squad that can, you know, go 1-for-1 and not one and then, well, this kid's going to be good 3 years. You know, there ain't many Rooneys that step on the field and just do it. So it gets tougher and tougher, you know, and that's where you take your hat off to the likes of Bournemouth, who can still play good soccer, still have like really good players. They sell on one or two, you know. Solanke is like, what a good buy that was, and that's where they've been intelligent, and they brought in players that they know, you know, that can fill in, but they can do it right away. And you know, and then you look at them and go, well, Solanke's gone. They've got to be one of the favourites to struggle now and go down. And yet, look at them, and they're still doing great, you know. And it's a disappointing when they draw. And so, you know, they've made Bournemouth, their own stadium, a little, you know, tough place to go now. You know, it used to be, Bournemouth 3 points, but now it's hard. You go down there, good tight field, good atmosphere. People don't want to go down there anymore. You know, they know it's a tough game.
Well, let's talk about another fortress, and the fortress we will be visiting on Saturday, which is Goodison Park for the last time. It's a ground I absolutely love. It's a staple of English football.
Yeah,
It is an old style ground. You know, yes, it is dated, but that's what I love about football. Are
yeah.
you sad to see that go and be replaced by this, what looks like it's going to be one of the best stadiums in the entire country, if not touched? You know, it could be in the world in Bramley Moor Dock.
Yeah, you know, going, you know, playing there, and being on the Everton team, and then, you know, going there as an away team. The atmosphere is like fabulous, and it's not, we're not just saying it because I play for them. Everyone says the same thing. It's a great atmosphere, and they don't shut up, you know, and it's tough to go there, but you know, you got to have new memories. It's time for it to be changed because it's not good enough now for the fans. You know, they have to have some comfort, and they need to get more people in so they can get more money in, because there are a lot of people that don't get a ticket, and they've got a lot of people that, you know, are queuing up and there's not enough season tickets to give out. Now it's a big old stadium, with all the luxuries. You know, it's going to be great, but the memories there you can never take away. And you know, going to Goodison, I always used to think, you know, man, this is a horrible place to come to, as an away player, and then as a home team player, it's kind of, you know, one of the scariest places. One in particular, I'll just go off it slightly, just because it's important, is that when we stayed up one time, we had to win, and we had to hope two other teams lost or drew. Anyway, like we parked our bus at the training field, our cars, and then went on the bus to the field, and I've never been so scared in my life because they've never been relegated. And you know, we ended up beating Wimbledon and staying up, but I never slept for, you know, weeks and weeks. And like, to be the first team to let those fans down would have been horrendous. You know, last year I know what those players were going through in the thought of that, because, you know, it means so much to them to go down. And then, you know, the new stadium we're starting again, and there's no history. So it's going to be strange for 5 or 6 years. I'm sure with Tottenham it was strange. White Hart Lane was a fabulous, field and where it was and what it meant to people. I used to love going there, but people move on, and it needs to be where they move on. And like you said, the stadium is going to be absolutely brilliant. The right on the water, better access, and easier to get to for fans. So hopefully it goes smooth and they stay up, and they we're in two games into the Premiership and we're talking about staying up. But the fact that -7 and no points, and what they had last year, it's going to be a tough year for them. It is, and this is where it's a good time for Bournemouth to go there. When they're starting to feel the pressure. 7 goals against, like they scored 1, I think, haven't they? They may have scored 1, or they probably haven't scored.
No, they haven't scored. Although they did win in the cup. They did win in the cup.
What cup? Yeah. And we're not
the Carabao Cup.
Exactly.
Of course, yeah.
So
but yeah, it's going to be a. Do you feel that Everton can turn it round against Bournemouth, or do you think that for the players it might have been easier if it was at Dean Court?
No. I think if they were going to Dean Court, the pressure's on even more then. And when you're coming back, you need a win. You'd rather be at home than away. And like, I don't know whether you're saying it's because it's like away game or whatever. But no, as a player, I'd want to come back there and feel like we have a chance of getting some points here. Even a point just to start, get it going. They know it's a tough game. It's a kind of like another Brighton game, where the team plays good soccer, and it reminds me of very similar. And it won't be easy for them, but those fans are cheering for a certain amount of time, and if they're pushing and they're doing the right things and they're staying in the game, they stay with them like any fans. But if they lose again, it gets tough. So.
And of course, Everton fans do expect, and they're one of the friendliest groups of fans. I've got to be honest, one of the friendliest groups of fans in the Premier League. But that expectation, that determination to do well, we've seen the social media videos as well of how the players have been. What's the best word for it, Paul? Probably criticised is probably the best word. Some fans did take it a little bit to extremes, but criticised after that Spurs defeat. That expectation is going to be, let's put this right on Saturday, isn't it? And how do you think it will go for them?
Well, there's kind of 2 ways to answer that. One of them, when you say that, the money that I was on, and it's not bitter or twisted, but they're earning stupid money, enough money that they can retire without thinking about anything, and then they're getting more and more. They get bonuses and whatever. So, and it's not. It doesn't come into the player's mind when they're playing, but. If you're not giving everything, and they didn't give everything, and like there was certain players there that they get to a point where they get to this level of play, and they looked at some of their other players, and well, he's not good enough to play with us, and that's how it gets. It doesn't matter who you are. It's like that guy isn't good enough, and you don't want that this early in the season. And my point here is that no. I get the fans, and they're not working hard enough. They're not. You don't 4-0 at Tottenham. I've been there so many times at Tottenham. Never had a pace in 4-0, and like we've always given them a good game, and they're appreciative of it. If you lose 3-2 or 1-0 or 2-1 or even 2-0 and it's a late goal, it's okay. It's what it is. But 4-0 is a blasting after losing your home opener. You've got to have some sort of reaction, and he didn't give one. And that's not good enough. And I think, like, if I was Bournemouth, this is the team I want to play right now. And so, like, I'm hoping I'm wrong, and I'm hoping Everton are going to step out. I know the coach will be ready for it and doing his utmost to make sure they're prepared for it, and covering everything. But to a certain extent, some of these players, they're tactical, clever players. They're the ones that make things happen. Are the ones that sometimes lazy, that go out of games because they're not getting enough of the ball. You got to do what we had to do, and work. Going through some of the time I was at Everton, I got so much abuse, and really, to be fair, I couldn't argue with it because we weren't giving anything back. And they have every right. They're paying a lot of money, so it was fair. So I as far as knocking the fans, now they have their right to have their say. So there's nothing wrong about that.
Do you feel, there's a lot of rumours as well going around about David Moyes going back to the club if Dyche was to be sacked or chooses to leave? Do you think that would be, considering what Moyes did before, he did quite a good job. Do you think that might
Right?
be a good move if, that does materialise?
They always say not to go back, don't they? But David Moyes was a bit special, and he has the club, the fans have a lot of love for him. He left to Man United and whatever, but I don't think that should come into it right now. I think Dyche has earned the right to stay a fair part of this season and have a good chance of staying there and trying to put it right. And I don't think he's done anything wrong. Again, keeping them up last year and the way that he did it, it was good soccer, and they played, and I think he deserves a good chance, and not to be talking about that anytime soon, about a new coach coming in. And Moyes was a legend there, and he did brilliant, and he got a chance to go to a bigger club, and it didn't work out for him. And sometimes a certain environment is perfect for him. With Harry Redknapp, there's another kind of person you could put in with Moyes, is that at Tottenham it suited him. West Ham, he did a good job. It's just because he's a good guy and everyone loves him. As a coach, it's not so much his technical side of it and what he does. It's the way he makes players feel. There's different types, but I think Moyes was like that, and he made his players loved him. And you look at the other side, what we have now, he's in your face if you're not doing this, and I don't mind that, and I think that you got to give some of that. Then you got the person behind that, who's the assistant coach, who does all the nice stuff. It goes around and says, don't worry about that. He this and this, but this is what we need to work on. So it's not just the coach; it's the whole team. There's a lot of important people there that help make that team function. But yeah, this is not a good game. I don't think. I think something like a Man U might have been a good thing, but something like a Bournemouth, where fans think, well, we should win this at home, but it's not like that. It's not like that. And these are the tricky ones. They're like Brighton, similar thing. They're not looking forward to it. So, we'll see.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. I do want Everton to stay in the Premier League. I'm not saying that because you're here, but it's a club that I've got so much respect for, and lovely group of fans. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll pull clear. But before you go, Paul, do tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now. I know you've touched on it a couple of times.
I coach MLS soccer, and they have franchises. So MLS has all their clubs and their youth teams, and then I coach in a branch in Arizona, and I right now I'm coaching 15-year-olds and 16-year-old kids, and they have to pay to play, and it's not cheap. So in England, the kids, they don't pay a lot of money to, or nothing, if they're on the pro teams. And it's the same with in the US. If you're on a MLS team, all the expenses are paid for, flights and such. But when you're in a club team, they have to pay club fees and stuff. So, it's a different environment, but it's fun. And the American kids love love soccer. And you notice I'm saying soccer all the time. I can't get. It's like when I went back to Everton, I was doing a meeting, like a talk with the fans, and I got slaughtered for saying soccer. But yeah, they're just good, honest kids, and fun to coach and open to ideas. And I'm just trying to bring my experience there. And there's a couple of good players that have gone on to be pro in the MLS that I've coached and enjoyed it. And so that's kind of my life. And Arizona is a beautiful state with mountains. It's a bit crappy at the moment because it's 110. We've had a record 55 days of 110 over the summer, and so. But the winters are magical. They're just perfect. So I love it here. I don't think I find myself going back to England, but I do miss parts of England, and this is part of it. Being in the soccer part of it.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And would you visit, the new stadium at, of course, Bramley Moor Dock once it's open?
I actually got asked to come to Everton. They actually ended up not doing it, but next year they want a bunch of ex-players, and like scoring a winning goal, and I still live off that anyway. But they've asked me to come back. Well, I don't like flying. I'm not a good flyer, so I want to come back. I did come back a few years ago and went on the field when they played Southampton, ironically, and I enjoyed that. But I've got to get over the flying. If I can do that, I'll definitely come back. Yeah.
Oh, you've got to do it. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
You never know. We might be the first opponents in the new stadium. Hopefully,
Right.
Fingers crossed.
Might get to meet you then.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Paul, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And no doubt we'll catch up very soon.
All right. Thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Not a problem at all, Paul.
Right.
And thank you for joining us. Remember, hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. See, I rhyme. Also, do check out all of our other shows. Now, Paul did mention on a number of occasions Harry Redknapp. Harry Redknapp is pretty much a resident here. He did the preview show ahead of the Premier League season, so go check that out as well. Of course, Everton fans, you would be interested in watching Damon Minchella. He's been on the show twice. Of course, he was in Ocean Colour Scene back in the day. Now, we've also got other people as well that we've welcomed on. Peter Hooton, unfortunately, he isn't an Everton fan, Everton fans. He's actually a Liverpool fan, but of course, he was responsible for All Together Now, the song. Also, we've had the likes of Omid Dalili on this show, Tom Meehan, Tiff Nadell, Tom Meehan, of course, from Kasabian, Richard Archer from Hardfi, Gaz Whelan from the Happy Mondays, Richie Neville from the boy band 5, and many more. So go check them all out. They're in the interview tab in here as well. Do remember, you can also become a member of this channel. Just click on the join tab and you can, it's only starting from 99p. So feel free. If you want to join it, great. If you don't, not a problem at all. But until the next show, up the cherries, up the toffees, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.